Are you wondering whether a custody evaluation is appropriate in your child custody case? And if it is, you're probably going to have questions about what's involved in a child custody evaluation. If these thoughts are swirling through your head at the moment, you're not going to want to stop watching this video. Stay tuned. My name's Wendy Hernandez, and I'm a Phoenix family law attorney. I'm also the creator of the Command the Courtroom YouTube channel. If you haven't already had a chance to check out the hundreds of videos on the channel, be sure and do that now. I'm sure there's something that's going to help you as you go through your family law court case, in particular if you're going through a child custody case. Don't forget, if you like this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. If you're not already a Command the Courtroom subscriber, be sure and hit the subscribe button so you get notified each time a new video drops. So now let's get on to today's topic, custody evaluations. All right, so let's talk about whether you should ask for a custody evaluation in your case or whether you should oppose a request for custody evaluation that has been made by the other party in your case. First things first, you need to understand custody evaluations cost moolah, they cost dollars. And usually they're not cheap. I've seen in my practice custody evaluations range from no less than $5,000 or $6,000, and they have gone all the way up to tens of thousands of dollars. Going in, you need to understand if you request a custody evaluation, you're going to need to pay for it, unless the court orders the other party to pay for it. But chances are the court's going to order both of you to split the cost of the custody evaluation. Don't ask for it unless you can pay for some, potentially all of it. That's number one. So the next thing is that a custody evaluation, even though it is expensive, could be well worth the cost. And the reason is this. In your case, if you can't resolve certain issues, as you know, you're going to end up going to trial. And during the trial, the judge is going to give you just a limited amount of time to present evidence regarding your child custody case. By no means is the judge really going to fully get to know you, your children, the background, and the history regarding you and the other parent. A judge is going to make a decision based on very limited information that is presented in a very limited period of time. What a custody evaluation does is it gives a judge a more full picture of what's going on in the lives of the parties and in the lives of the children, as well as the mental health of the parties and what other people around the parties are saying. So if you go to trial, you can know that the judge has a more fully informed picture about what's happening. That's the benefit to a custody evaluation. A judge has more information than he or she would have otherwise had without it. All right, so what are the types of cases where a custody evaluation might be appropriate? Well, I can tell you this, custody evaluations are not needed in every single child custody case. Custody evaluations are by far the exception versus the norm. So if you're wondering, should I ask for a custody evaluation in my case? What you have to think about is this. That you have to ask yourself, does my case have issues that are a little more complex that the judge might need help sorting out? And if the answer is yes, then you move on and you start exploring the potential issues in your case. And if some of those issues include things like domestic violence, allegations of abuse or neglect, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, a question of relocation, a question of child's wishes, then those are some of the things that you look at in determining whether a custody evaluation might be beneficial in your situation. And I also share this, like, a lot of times kids, especially as they get older, do start expressing a preference about what they want. But I don't think I've ever asked for a custody evaluation based on a child's wishes alone. Usually there are other factors surrounding that. But certainly in cases where there's been a history of domestic violence or significant domestic violence, abuse or neglect, mental health issues or substance abuse issues, these are areas where the judge could use a little more information. Also, custody evaluations could be helpful in cases where there is a high conflict parenting relationship. The question is, can the parents co-parent together? Can they share a joint custody or joint decision making, especially if they are high conflict? So a custody evaluation might help sort that out for the court. So once you examine those factors and determine that a custody evaluation is or is not appropriate, then we move on to what happens when you request a custody evaluation. So if you decide that a custody evaluation is appropriate in your case, um, the best thing usually is to reach out to the other party and see if they will agree. In many cases, parties do not agree. And in that case, a motion has to be done to the court requesting a custody evaluation with support for the request. In cases where the parties do agree that a custody evaluation should happen, then they have to agree on how the costs are going to be divided and also who the custody evaluator is going to be. In many situations where I've had parties who agree to a custody evaluation, they don't agree as to who the custody evaluator is going to be. So it's going to be up to your court and your jurisdiction to determine how that custody evaluator is selected if you don't agree on who that's going to be or if you don't agree on the cost. And if you have an attorney, definitely talk to your attorney about how this could be resolved by the court. Where I am in Phoenix, Arizona, Maricopa County, if parties agree on a custody evaluation, but they don't agree on who is going to perform that evaluation, oftentimes the courts tell us to submit what's called a blind list of a couple of names each to the court. So what that means is we each submit a couple of proposed names for evaluators to the court on a single pleading with no notation as to who is requesting what evaluator, and then the court randomly selects. In cases where my client and the other side don't agree on how those custody evaluation costs are going to be split, then we submit a memo to the court stating our reasons why we want what we want. That could differ depending on your jurisdiction. But the point is, it starts with either an agreement with the other side, and if there's no agreement to an evaluation, then a motion to the court. If you decide to move forward with the custody evaluation, eventually you're going to get a court order which states, hey, there's going to be an evaluation, a custody evaluation in this case. That court order is also going to lay out who the evaluator is, as well as how the costs are going to be divided between the parties for that evaluation. Once you have the order, then the evaluator will probably get started pretty promptly. One of the first things that evaluator is going to do is interview you and the other party, usually separately. And keep in mind that you're going to have more than one interview with the evaluator before everything's said and done. The evaluator is going to talk to you about a lot of things, all of which impact the interests of the children. The evaluator is going to want to know about your relationship with the children, your ex's relationship with the children, whether there's allegations of domestic violence, abuse, whether there's substance abuse, mental health issues. These interviews are going to be very in-depth. So not only is your evaluator going to talk to you and the other parent, the evaluator is probably going to observe you and the other parent separately interacting with your children. So what that means is a home visit. And sometimes in Arizona, the custody evaluator is the one who observes, does the observation. And in some cases, they have kind of a helper, somebody who works with and for them, who does that observation. And it may be one or two or three observation sessions where the evaluator comes into the home and just looks at the interaction between the parent and the children. The evaluator is probably looking at the home to see what it looks like. Is it clean or is it in disarray? Is it tidy? Is it child proofed? Are there age appropriate things in the home? Are firearms locked up? Are there dangerous animals? These are the types of things that a custody evaluator is going to be looking at. But those observations are an integral part of most custody evaluations. Another important part to custody evaluations are interviews with the children. And of course, in many cases, children are too young to maturely express their wishes or what's going on in the home. But in many cases, custody evaluators do talk to the children. And I've had cases where very young children, even 4-year-olds, have been able to share information with a custody evaluator that actually made it into the report and that significantly impacted that evaluator's recommendation. So you can plan on your children having contact with the custody evaluator outside of your presence. It may be in your home or you may take them to some sort of facility, but I've never had a custody evaluator allow a parent to sit there while the child was being interviewed by the custody evaluator. And, it's nerve-wracking to think about your child being in the middle of this litigation, but custody evaluators are trained professionals. They're usually mental health professionals, and they're going to talk to your children in an age-appropriate way. And they're not going to make your children feel like they have to pick sides. The custody evaluator's job is to elicit information from the children in a non-threatening way, to provide that to your judge so the judge can have more information. On top of looking at documentation, your custody evaluator is going to want to talk to what we call collateral witnesses. Collateral witnesses are people who might know you or your ex or the children. They might include friends, family members, teachers, coaches, people like that who can provide information to the custody evaluator about the parenting relationship and about the relationship of the children with each of the parents. So, a custody evaluator is probably not going to be talking to 10 or 20 people. I guess if you paid somebody enough, they might. In my experience, usually a custody evaluator, can interview anywhere from 5 to 10 people for each of the parties. So, again, if you're thinking about a custody evaluation, think about who might be a willing participant or a willing collateral witness that could provide important information as to the best interest of your children to that evaluator. Another integral part of custody evaluations is psychological testing. And this is fantastic. In some cases where my clients and I suspect that the other party has some sort of undiagnosed mental health disorder, I think custody evaluations are great because oftentimes this is the first time a party's being diagnosed with something that impacts parenting or co parenting. And there are times when people can beat the psychological testing, but the fact that you have this psychological testing available to you is helpful. And oftentimes, these custody evaluators are skilled enough to show or to say that a person is being evasive or dishonest or untruthful about the answers they're giving, which indicates that there's a bigger issue. The psychological testing part of custody evaluation is huge. So that's another benefit to having a court order, a custody evaluation, because you get insight into a person's condition, mental health condition, potential disorders. And oftentimes, custody evaluators will make recommendations about treatment for disorders that are diagnosed for the first time or that have been diagnosed in the past and that continue to be treated, or certain suspected disorders that are impacting the parent child or the parenting relationship. All right, so once the custody evaluator has done all the things we just talked about, like interview the parties, talk to the children, observe the parents and the children, talk to the collateral witnesses, reviewed the documentation, and done the psychological testing, then the custody evaluator is going to write a report. And the custody evaluator is going to lay out in detail what he or she did to arrive at the ultimate conclusions or recommendations that, as you can imagine, come at the end of the report. And as part of the report, the custody evaluator may even make recommendations for treatment, mental health treatment for the parties and or the children. A lot of times, these recommendations are helpful to the parties and the children and the family. What I find is that when I get a custody evaluation, in many cases, this evaluation and the recommendations are a good jumping off point for settlement discussions. And there are cases where a good custody evaluation helps party resolve the case short of trial. But if it doesn't, then you're going to end up in trial. And chances are you're going to want that custody evaluator to come and testify on the stand. There's some cases where the custody evaluator may not. There's some cases where the parties may just agree that that report is submitted as evidence for the court. But in many cases, that evaluator comes and takes a stand, and the parties get to cross examine or examine that custody evaluator. So that's about it on whether or not you should ask for a custody evaluation in your case, and also what the steps are to a custody evaluation. The most important thing, as I always say, and as I said earlier in this video, is you need to understand those best interest factors because, again, that's the point of this whole custody evaluation is for that evaluator to come up with thoughts about what's best for the kids and to provide support and reasoning for that recommendation and then present it to the court. So to be two steps ahead of the game, You need to know what the best interest factors are and what that custody evaluator is going to be looking at. So check out all of the other videos. I do a ton of them on the best interest factors. If you like this video, again, give it a thumbs up, please. And also don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Check out all the other Command the Courtroom videos. And until next time, get out there and command the courtroom and don't forget to keep on trucking. I don't know. Bye.